Welcome to Dadograms. Have you ever had writer's block and didn't know what to do about it or why it had even happened? Do you work in an office environment where you have to use your mental energies to produce things quite a bit, and on occasion, you aren't able to do it? That's what I'm talking about in this Dadogram. I've had it happen a time or two to myself, and there are several specific reasons that it in fact happens. So I want to talk to you about why it happens. I want to talk to you about how to watch out for it. And then, of course, I want to share with you some of the solutions I've found that can help cure it. That's what I'm talking about in today's fun-filled Dadogram. As many of you probably know, I was a Navy pilot and served in the military for 28 years. What a lot of you probably don't know is that I didn't just fly, I did an awful lot of writing. I had always written as a hobby, but at one particular point in my career, it became the thing that I did. I became the speechwriter for the 4-star admiral in charge of the United States Pacific Fleet. And then I went from being a hobbyist to somebody who had to write full-time on demand. And there was a lot of demand when I had to write. Over a 3-year period, I wrote more than 500 full-length speeches, not to mention hundreds upon hundreds of the smaller speeches that he could kind of put in his pocket, pull out, and give off the cuff. Sometimes I had to write as many as 12 full-length speeches that would be delivered over a 14-day period. And the first time I ever got writer's block, and I mean really got writer's block, was when I was writing for one of those admirals. In about the first 6 months that I was working for my first admiral, I ended up getting sick. Now this sickness was much more severe than a cold, but it wasn't anywhere near flu levels or anything like that. But it was sick enough that for one of the first times perhaps in my entire career, I did not go into work. I had to actually stay home to try to recover because there was a lot of sneezing and sniffling and stuff that I didn't need to pass on to the rest of the office. So as soon as I got back into the office, we went right into travel, and wherever the admiral was going, I was with him because I was having to write the words he was going to say at the next event. It was a tremendously challenging time for me because I had writer's block, but it was more than that. I didn't have a brain for writing at all. It took, I would say, 2 weeks after I was physically healed up to get my full mental faculties back and able to write like I normally did. As it turns out, and I did not know this at that time, but sickness causes mental fatigue. In fact, it's called post-infectious cognitive impairment or brain fog. And I'm telling you, it zapped my brain. I couldn't hold a single thought in my mind for more than a few seconds before it just kind of flittered away and left me, and I had no way to get anything down on paper. None of the poetry of my writing was coming out. It was very, very formulaic and proper grammar. It just sounded horrible. And so I really did struggle until those 2 weeks had passed. And I had thought that was just a one-off. I never thought I'd have to ever think about it again. But as you may have noticed, I did not produce a Dadogram during the Christmas break this year. In fact, I pulled back one from the old days and put it out there for you to look at for another time. And there's a reason for that, because once again, I had gotten sick, and while I had gotten past the actual physical illness part, I had no brain again. I couldn't focus, I couldn't think, I couldn't concentrate. It was just absolute hell. And for the longest time, it really had me worried that I had broke something, that the illness had somehow caused something permanent, because it seemed to take a very, very, very long time for me to get past it. Thankfully, it started to finally recede, my mind started to sharpen up, and I started to be able to produce again. However, I have struggled to get back to where I normally am, even this late, well into February. So I've been sick like that twice. Once while writing for the Admiral, and twice for writing for, Dadograms. But I haven't quite gotten out of this last one yet. They say what you're supposed to do is sleep, have low stress inputs, light movement, nutrition and hydration. Ultimately, it comes down to time. Over time, you should heal up enough and get your brain function back. For me, it's been a little slower than I like. And now I'm starting to realize that there's a whole nother reason a person can have writer's block that goes beyond just illness. And that's what I'm going to talk about next. So before we continue on, let me talk to you really quickly about the way I see my writing, how it comes to be, and it might be the same way for a lot of you out there. For me, every once in a while, and I don't want this to sound like I've got a mental issue here or anything, but every once in a while, my voice starts speaking in my own mind. And it's like an audio recording. It's almost like I'm reading something that has already been written, and it just starts speaking. And I, as an observer, am sitting there listening to this. And then, of course, I scramble to get a pen and paper and write it down as fast as I can. Usually I can only get bullet points of the topics. Then I go back and try to put it back into full thought on my computer. That's kind of the process that I've had probably for as long as I can remember. And as it turns out, even stranger is where I find my best ability to write, or at least have that pre-written monologue rolling along in my mind. And that is the shower. Seriously, think about it. If you think about where you are in a shower, you're stuck in a small box with nothing really to see. I'm surrounded by white noise from the sound of the waterfall. I'm comfortable in the heat and the steam, and then all of a sudden the voice just starts happening. Now, of course, I can't write things very well in the shower, so that's a problem. But for the most part, that's where I get most of my great ideas, is in the shower. And I know that that's very common for a lot of people. In fact, one of my favorite quotes of all time is from the creator and co-founder of Atari, who said, and I quote, "Everyone who has ever taken a shower has had an idea. It's a person who gets out of the shower, dries off, and does something with it that makes the difference." Everybody has great ideas in the showers. I usually do too, but weirdly enough, even that's a place where this isn't working like it should right now. So where's my mind gone? Turns out I've gotten very busy with other aspects of my life that are crowding out the creative side of me. I've gotten very, very busy with just some very tedious tasks. Special projects, for instance. Right now, I'm kind of helping out with the family business as the acting chief financial officer for it. And as you know, it's a fairly sizable business. We're dealing with importing fireworks from China and distributing them all across the country. We have a trucking company. We have storage unit complexes, and on and on. And I, as CFO, have gotten very, very busy trying to learn QuickBooks and all the intricacies involved in that, not to mention the overall strategy that we're trying to work at this particular time. So that's bogged down a lot of my mental capacity. The next, as you know, my wife and I are both real estate investors. And right now we are conducting one rehab on a condo that we bought, as well as refinancing two of our other properties, all at the same time. Then I've had to go through a 2-week course to regain some licensing for being a flight instructor in a Cessna. That has been tremendously tedious, as it's got to be some of the most boring stuff in the world to have to get through. And that I've been chipping away at for about an hour each and every day, taking away more brain power. And then, of course, I've been writing a book, and that has demanded a lot of me. I love to write, but as it turns out, writing a book is a very challenging thing indeed. And this is how it all happened. My very most productive time of the day, and I know this from experience, is from 7 o'clock in the morning to about 10:30 in the morning. If I could work on my very best thing during that time, I'll get the best results. And I prioritized the book over everything. But the problem with the book was, once I get started writing on it, I enjoyed the experience so much I couldn't stop. So I'd work right on through lunch, right on into the afternoon. And meanwhile, everything else that I should have also been doing a little bit at a time each day in order to keep up, well, I didn't. And I got further and further behind on all those things that I just mentioned. And after a while, they were like an avalanche of snow hanging over my head. I simply had so much to do and dig out from under that I couldn't do it. And that began to really affect how I could write the book. Dadograms completely have evaporated out of my mind, and I'm stuck with all of this tedious crap that I just can't stand doing. And so I had to change things up. As it turns out for me, I also know that my second best writing period of the day is from 9 o'clock at night to midnight. That's when most of my family is starting to wind down, get into their beds, get ready for bed at least, and the house is quiet during that time. I can sit up here and I can write uninterrupted. So I flip-flop the way I do it. I write in the evenings, and in the mornings I get up and I work on all that tedious stuff. I have now refinanced 2 properties. The rehab is well underway. I've gotten very, very good with my QuickBooks, finally. Yesterday, I actually finished my book. It's done. Now I just got to go through and do the editing part, which is the part I enjoy the most. And I got that course for my flight licensing renewed, and it is all done, and I don't have to do that again for another 2 years, thankfully. So now I've got a lot of that tedious stuff off my mind, and ideally I can get back to being creative with Dadograms and my writing once again. So these are the things I've learned kind of by trial by fire, if you will, working through this, trying to figure out what was wrong with me and why I couldn't produce. Well, as it turns out, one, illness got me, and two, I simply got behind on all the other work and responsibilities I was supposed to be keeping up on. And that started to weigh up on my mind up here. And once that happens, you lose that creative spark, that muse, that ability to just write poetry. And now, thankfully, a lot of those things are coming to an end, and I can get back to the one thing I truly do love, writing and teaching. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this somewhat unusual datagram. Hopefully I'll be back to a regular schedule of more normalized datograms next week. Until next time, stay safe out there.